Chapter 11 Naomi. As the end of July approached, life settled into a new calm. The dreaded construction procurement and contract law books and notes were finally making sense, and I was beginning to find structure in the quantity of information. Passing my exam now felt achievable. Working at the campsite was a nice distraction from studying, and somewhere over the last few weeks, my attitude towards it had changed. It was hard to explain the difference. Maybe my jealousy of the campsite and the campers was waning, or maybe it was Gran's advice about being thankful. Now, when I worked at the campsite, I was intentional about finding things to be thankful for. But while my studies in the campsite were falling into place, the one thing I still couldn't figure out was Lewis, even though we were now spending time together. I lay on my bed, my diary in front of me, trying to gather my thoughts. When had I last written diary entries about my feelings for a boy? More recently than I like to admit. From our shaky beginnings, Lewis was slowly becoming a friend. He could still annoy me way too easily and enthusiastically butted into my life, while not letting me anywhere near his. After 6 weeks, what did I know about him? Hardly anything. He was fun to be around. He has a degree in history and is hoping to do a PhD. But what else do I know? It was only him and his dad. But what about friendships? And what about faith? When he didn't work on Sundays, he came to church with us, and yet it wasn't something he talked about. Who was Lewis? I circled the question in my diary and decided that on our next outing, I would be sure to dig deeper into his life. Mid-morning, I walked down to the kitchen. I needed sustenance before I began today's revision. Josh was sitting at the kitchen table, scoffing a bowl of cereal. Neither of us are early morning people. "Where's Mum, Dad and Gran?" I asked, switching on the kettle. "Mum and Dad have taken Gran out for a drive along the coast." I looked away from him. "Ugh, don't speak with your mouth full." He paused, his next spoonful halfway between the bowl and his mouth. "Then don't ask me a question when I'm eating." Brothers, there is no reasoning with them. By the time the kettle had boiled, his bowl was empty, and it was safe to talk. "What are your plans for today?" He shrugged. "I'm not sure yet. I'll probably go to Harrison's, and then we might go for a cycle or out in the kayaks. You want to come?" I shook my head. "No thanks, I need to study." He wrapped me in his arms. "You've got this, sis. You'll ace your exam." Joshua can be the most annoying brother, but there are times when he surprises me with his kindness. As we walked out of the kitchen, the back door flew open. Lewis stood in the doorway, looking frantically between us. "Lewis, what happened?" I stared at his arms. From his wrists to his elbows, he was covered in a bright red rash. I was hiding around the trees at the far side of the campsite, and next thing I knew, my arms were itching like crazy. "Where's your mum?" I was already rushing towards the hallway. "She's out. Give me 2 seconds to get changed, and I'll take you to the chemist. Hopefully they can give you something to treat the rash." I raced up the stairs. This was not what I meant when I decided to get to know Lewis better. Rushing back into the kitchen, I grabbed the keys from our little runaround car. "Stop scratching," I yelled as I pushed Lewis towards the front door. Joshua was still in the same spot, staring at Lewis's arms. "Is it sore?" I asked as I drove the short distance to the chemist. Lewis opened the window and held his arms up to the breeze. "More hot and itchy." "Almost there. Hopefully some antihistamine cream will sort you out." Grateful for the nearby parking space, we hurried into the chemist. The pharmacist ushered Lewis to a side room to have a look at his arms. While they were gone, I browsed the shop, picking up various nail varnishes without paying attention to the colours. I sniffed bottles of perfume, their cheap floral scents at odds with the antiseptic smell of the shop. A family from the campsite entered, looking for suntan lotion and after-sun cream. Apparently the sunshine had taken them by surprise. We were exchanging pleasantries when Lewis came out with a pharmacist. "Hi, Mr. and Mrs. Brown," said Lewis. I was impressed that he remembered their names. I was hopeless at names. However, I noticed he stayed near the counter and was trying to hide his arms behind his back. As soon as he paid for his medication, we retreated to the car. Back home, I poured Lewis a glass of juice and put out some biscuits while he took his first tablets. "How are you feeling?" Did they tell you how long it would take for the antihistamine to kick in? Lewis checked his watch. They said I should feel the benefits within half an hour. I glanced out the window. The itchy arms were making him quieter than usual. Does anything need done at the campsite? He shook his head. It's okay, thanks. Once his tablets start working, I should be okay to work. He held out his arms and examined the rash. Hopefully the redness dies down though. Don't want the campers thinking I have something contagious, especially as the Browns saw me in the chemist's. No, that would never do. Mum is still upset from that negative review about mosquitoes and birds. We don't want a bad review about infectious staph. I didn't think about that. He looked from his red arms to me. Can you fill in for me at the campsite and check in the new guest this afternoon? My joke had backfired. I was about to tell Lewis I was joking when he flashed a smile that had my stomach flipping and my head nodding. Thanks, Naomi, you're a lifesaver. I'll buy you a thank you ice cream tonight. I walked over to the sink, attempting to hide my blushing face. I am easily bribed with sweet treats, but it wasn't just about the ice cream. Dinner was a usual riotous affair with our kitchen table hosting more than just our family. Harrison, who's probably at our house more than his own, Mum's friend Lena from along the street, Ellen and Lewis. Mum had been gushing non-stop sympathy for Lewis since she'd found out about his rash. She can't help herself. At least she had recognised that we'd dealt with it and he was on the mend. She sent Dad out with rope and tent pegs to section off the offending area and hope it would keep campers from coming into contact with rash-causing weeds. After dinner, all of us in the younger generation disappeared to the beach. Joshua and Harrison went off in search of their friends, while Ellen, Lewis and I walked to the lighthouse. As always, I stopped at the carvings of the cross on the lighthouse wall and ran my fingers over it. If only I knew the history and significance of this carving. Lewis stood beside me while Ellen continued. Perhaps the who and the why aren't important. What if the meaning of the cross is personal to everyone who notices it? What does it mean to you? I shielded my eyes from the glare of the evening sun as I looked at Lewis. I like that thought. I gazed out to sea as I considered what the lighthouse meant to me. Seagulls circled overhead, filling the air with their shrill cries as they scavenged for scraps of food. Gentle waves lapped the rocks near the lighthouse as moored boats danced with the sea. I returned my attention to the carving. I guess I see the cross and the lighthouse as beacons that save lives. Despite the association with death, both offer comfort, hope, and light for the journey. I looked up at Lewis. Even without trying, he made me stop and think. When he wasn't pushing me on my attitude to my family, I appreciated his insights. A flush of red crossed my cheeks as he held my gaze. Lewis edged towards me, neither of us saying anything, the space between us charged with possibilities. Were we on the brink of moving beyond friendship? Was he going to kiss me? Did I want him to? Silly question, of course I did. The realisation made me blush again. Lewis hesitated and then turned to look back out to sea. Whatever had almost occurred passed as quickly as it had come. Side by side we looked at the horizon, neither of us speaking. Perhaps both of us were trying to work out what this thing is between us. Is it friendship or more? Come on, you two! Ellen's shout interrupted my thoughts. We ran to catch up with her, acting as if nothing had happened, or almost happened. Lewis wandered over to the ice cream booth and bought us ice creams. We settled on the beach and enjoyed our treat. Thanks for the ice cream, Lewis, said Ellen as she quickly licked away the melting cream running down her cone. We could get used to having you around. He raised his cone in a mock cheers. While Ellen engaged in regular conversation, I tried to regain my equilibrium. The incident at the lighthouse moments ago already felt vague and dreamlike. Had he been close to kissing me, or was it my imagination? Was I disappointed nothing happened, or relieved? I wasn't sure. I liked the idea of kissing him, and yet I was about to leave for my exam. I needed to stay focused on that. I forced my attention on the conversation taking place beside me. So how long are you staying in Eden Cove? Ellen was asking. I was glad it wasn't just me who wanted to know his story, he shrugged. I'm not sure. Miranda would like me to stay until at least the end of August. I guess we'll see how busy it is then. Don't you have plans for what comes next? Hopefully I'll be staying at Nottingham University and doing a PhD if the funding gets approved. When will you find out? Ellen continued. I noted he seemed happier answering questions when Ellen was the one asking rather than me. What did that mean? I wasn't sure, but I would let Ellen do her work and glean whatever information he offered. I don't know. What's your plan if there's no funding? He shrugged, then looked out to sea. I guess I'll see if there are other opportunities to study somewhere else. Doesn't Reading have a good history department, Naomi? My gaze shot over to Ellen. I could see her cheek muscles twitching, her telltale sign that she was fighting a fit of giggles. I scrunched my eyebrows at her, which made her look away. It wasn't so fun when her focus was on me. I don't know, I replied, trying to keep my voice calm. There is a history department, but I've no idea if they have PhD students. I shrugged. Ellen went back to peppering Lewis with questions. Yet I no longer cared about his answers. I stood and walked to the shore. Out on the water, moored boats bobbed about to the tune of the sea instead of setting their own course. I sympathised. Now that I was more confident about my exam, I had expected everything else to slot into place, but that wasn't the case. I was still being tossed about. Maybe the pressure of the last few months continued to weigh me down, making me restless and messing with my emotions. It would probably be best if I went home. I couldn't trust myself to stay in Lewis's presence. I was about to tell the others I was going when Ellen shouted and waved. See you tomorrow, Naomi. I need to go now. I should have run and joined her, but Lewis was already sauntering down to join me in the shallows of the sea. Are you okay? I nodded. Yes, sorry, last minute nerves, I guess. When are you going back to Reading? In a couple of days. I'll miss you. The words slipped out quietly, and before I responded, he was back to question-asking mode. Besides feeling nervous, how are you feeling about the exam? I scrunched my forehead, feeling I had missed something as I automatically answered his question. I feel a lot more prepared for this exam than the last one. Plus, it's amazing how much a reset has helped my prayer life. Ah, yes, it does give us a new focus, doesn't it? I nodded. We walked further along the beach, silent for a few moments. I've been praying for you too, Lewis. You have? Of course. Not that I know what to pray about. You don't give much away, do you? He shrugged. There's nothing to tell. What can I say when I've lived my whole life in one city? That doesn't mean you don't have a story to share. True. Honestly, there's not much to say. I don't believe you, Lewis. I took a deep breath, fighting against the frustration of his non-committal answers. Why won't you talk about yourself? Why is it important to you? Because you're constantly pushing me and judging me on my attitudes, but you stay closed about who you are. You're not allowed to do that. You can't give me a hard time and say nothing about yourself. He responded with an infuriating shrug. I gave up trying to control my frustration. All my confusion of the night came out in a raised voice, throwing questions at him. Who are you, Lewis? What's your favourite thing? Who's your best friend? Why don't you talk about your family? I paused and took a deep breath. What's your favourite song? The last question was to make him smile, to try to make my questions less intense, but I guess I failed because he stopped walking, glared at me, then walked off towards the campsite. I let out a squeal of frustration, then marched home and stormed into our house. The possibilities of earlier shattered.